Hi, I'm Jacqueline.
And I'm Courtney, and this is Caffeinated Crimes.
I also apparently forgot how the beginning of this podcast goes because I was going over the pronunciation of the name with Courtney and I was like on like the first paragraph and like when Courtney said record and I hit got it and I almost just really just started reading the episodes and I was like, oh wait, I do have to introduce myself and then we do usually chat a minute, but I was like on the first
I'm
line, I was like
ready.
ready to go and I was like, that's not how we do this actually.
Yeah, even podcasts that don't have banter, they at least have a little something
At least
in
they say
between.
hello and get started.
Hello.
Or an intro or some. But I don't know, because some, like we've talked about before, that do like the auto, like the pre-recorded intro,
hmm
when they start recording, then do they just start, just talking at the
Yeah, I
beginning, I
guess so. I
guess?
guess the people who don't introduce themselves on.
Yeah. Like for those who don't have any banter either, that just like, after the intro, then it starts with the story or
I bet that
whatever.
makes for really short recording sessions too.
Yeah, probably.
Just
Maybe they
pop
just
in
get all
there.
their They just get all their discussion out beforehand like we do, and then also still run our mouths for
That's
forever.
true. That's true.
Yeah, because I'm sure I've talked about them many times, but that's messed up the SVU podcast. They record their banter at different times than they record like the episode because they talk
hmm
about the episode and they also do like an interview. So I think all three segments are like recorded at different times because they pre-record like the episodes like months in advance, but then they want their banter to be like more timely. So they're not talking about
hmm
stuff that happened, months ago. So like they'll be talking and then like it'll cut off and then they'll like start in on the episode and I'm like, oh, so that's weird when they like record the actual episode, they just start talking, doing the episode. Like,
Yeah, it is interesting the way different podcasts do it and their
hmm.
methods. And hey, some are in professional podcast studios.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm in my guest room.
Same, same. But I do still have my plant in here. If you guys remember from Christmas time, where I took all my
hmm
decorations out of my living room to put up my Christmas stuff, and I was like, "Wow, it's so nice just having like a little pop of color in here." I left it in here, so I still look at it when we record, which is the only time I'm ever in this room. So,
Yeah,
it's lovely.
that's nice.
All right, well, I don't think I have a whole lot to chat about. So, if you're ready, I think I'll just start back where I planned on and just go right from the beginning.
Start right on over.
Um,
Yeah, because I don't really think we have any updates that I could really talk on. I mean, I know there's
yeah.
the Riley Strain thing going on in
Mm,
Nashville. I don't know if you've seen that, the
yes.
Missouri student who's missing, and it's very
Yeah.
weird,
Weird.
everything
Yeah.
lining up. But shout out to our friend from CrimeCon, True Crime
Yes.
Mama. She's posting a lot of TikToks about it. So go follow her and get
Yes,
all the
please.
updates because she's
She's
telling them
on it.
all.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen her updates as well. Yes, please go check out her for the updates that we do not have because she's got them all for you.
Yep.
So our sources for today were the Finding Andrea documentary series, the episode Andrea Knabel from the Voices for Justice podcast, missinginamericanetwork.com, the Courier Journal, and uncovered.com. Andrea Michelle Knabel was raised in Louisville, Kentucky. She had two sisters, Sarah and Erin. She grew up in the Audubon Park area and went to the Catholic school down the street. Her parents, Mike and Cheryl, had gotten divorced at some point, not sure exactly when, but she was the oldest child. Mike described her as delightful, a very happy baby. She learned really quickly, and she really took on the bigger sister role with Erin and Sarah. She was very selfless. Erin said they would call her Mother Andrea and that she really helped her out as a growing teen, and Andrea would just go out of her way to help people. She got a bachelor's in marketing at the University of Louisville, and she had thought about possibly obtaining a master's as well. She did have two sons, and she shared custody with both of their dads. And Andrea was a part of a local group that was called Missing in America. So, Missing in America was founded by Nancy Schaefer, and it was a group of women who would get together using their own funds and search for missing people. They are contacted multiple times a day for assistance, and they help search the woods, creeks, tunnels, just everywhere. And according to one of their members, they had a high success rate of about 96%. They really tried to like be more thorough than the local police would. The core members are Lacrice Kidd, Suzette Rodriguez, Diane Stumpf, and Andrea Knabel. So they really bonded over a friend who was missing, and they all traveled to Lexington and found their friend alive within 4 days. And after that, Nancy tried to group them together and continue their searches for missing people. And they were all very close, and they were very passionate about this kind of work. And unfortunately, we can't really find a whole lot about Andrea's life prior to her work with Missing in America, so the information is a bit limited. But Andrea did hit a rough spot in late 2017. So, in either November or December of that year, she lost her job as an analyst at Humana. So, Humana had two major layoffs, and unfortunately, she was a part of that. And as a result, she did end up losing her apartment and started living with her mom, Cheryl, in Audubon Park, which is about 5 miles from downtown Louisville in a pretty affluent area. On January 23rd, 2019, Andrea was in a hit and run car accident when her car was totaled. And so now she's left without a car as well as a house. So she did start a GoFundMe in hopes of raising some money to get a new car. And around this time, her family also suggested that maybe she wanted to seek counseling, but that didn't really make her very happy. And around 2019, Sarah and her fiance Ethan also moved into Andrea's mom's house to help renovate the house. So there were reports that Andrea and Sarah were not really getting along at this point. Later in investigations, many neighbors reported hearing fights like all throughout the summer of 2019. It got to the point where they almost called 911. They could hear it out on their back porch when the Knabels' doors were closed. They didn't hear exactly like what the fights were about, just a lot of fighting, a lot of screaming. Their mom, Cheryl, was also not living at the house at the time due to the renovations. She would come by like during the day and hang out, but she was sleeping over at a friend's house. So only Sarah, Ethan, and Andrea were living at the home. So it seems around this time, Andrea was really butting heads with not only Sarah, but her father, Mike, as well. Mike said that he was trying to get her back on track, but Andrea was very prideful and just really wanted to do it herself. Mike said at one point he did say to her how, like, she was homeless, she was broke, and she had no car, and even alluded to the fact that her boys might be better off with their fathers. He does say now that he regrets saying all of this and that that could have chased her away. Um, Obviously, this is a very harsh comment, but he does admit that he didn't communicate very well with her and he regrets that heavily. And we do think some like future details may explain this comment a little bit. What?
A little bit.
I was trying to say like a little bit and a little bit. Oh my God. Okay. So we do think some future details may help explain this a little bit better. So we'll talk about that in a minute. On August 12th, 2019, Andrea and Sarah had an argument that evening. Both Ethan and Cheryl were involved in this fight as well, and eventually Ethan drove Andrea to get McDonald's and then dropped her off at the ER because she had some kind of like rash infection going on her face. So he dropped her off there about 9:50 p.m. and she had to take a Lyft back to the house. If you're not familiar with that company, Lyft is like a rideshare app, so kind of like a cab that she had to pay to get back home. So she was pretty upset about this because money was tight for her at the time. But she took the Lyft back home at around 11:30 p.m. and she knocked on the door, but no one answered. Which I'm also like, that was a pretty quick ER visit. But anyway,
Yeah. She was in and out.
yeah, dang, what ER was that? We need to. Um, So Andrea got frustrated and walked to her sister Erin's house. So it was only about a mile away, like a 15-minute walk. And this apparently was a very common walk that they would like make a lot. Erin said that at her house, her friend had come over. They were having a glass of wine when Andrea walked up. Erin said she was upset and crying. Erin said that her mom, Sarah, and Ethan were all like talking to her about trying to get her life back together. They didn't agree with what she was doing. They didn't like her friends. And her mom was just trying to tell her like what she needed to do. Sarah was taking their mom's side, and it really hurt Andrea's feelings, and she felt like they were ganging up on her. She said they were mean. Erin thinks she mentioned something about Sarah hitting her at one point. And Erin said it was getting closer to 1 a.m. and that she had to work the next day. So she said while her friend Michelle was there, she could take Andrea home because Michelle could be there with the kids. So Erin dropped her off at their mom's house, and Erin also called Cheryl to try to get things settled between all of them. Around 1:30 a.m., Andrea had walked back to Erin's house. Andrea said that she didn't have a key to the house and they didn't answer the door and she wanted to stay with Erin. So Aaron's very stressed out by the conversation and thought that Andrea should just go back to their mom's house and that everything will be fine. Aaron was like trying to set these boundaries. It's very late. Her kids are sleeping. She has to go to sleep so she can get up for work in the morning. Aaron said that she looked through the blinds and saw Andrea walking away. So obviously, in hindsight, this feels like a misstep by Aaron, but Aaron has said multiple times how she just beats herself up and thinks about this all the time.
And like I know it was late, but again, this is a very affluent neighborhood. Like
Yeah.
this is somewhere like very, very safe. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not unusual for her to be walking alone, kind
Exactly.
of.
Yeah. So Cheryl texted the next morning and asked if anyone had seen or heard from Andrea. Andrea had gotten into a fight with all of them, and Aaron assumed that she was mad at her for not letting her stay, so they thought maybe Andrea was just ignoring them. Aaron tried to reach out to her. Erin also tried to reach out to a lot of her friends as well on August 14th. And so the next day, a lot of the friends got back to them saying that they hadn't seen or heard from her. So Erin did finally file a missing person report. The family also reached out to Nancy and Suzette with Missing in America, and Nancy called Tracy Leonard, who was a private investigator. So Tracy had met with Andrea multiple times through Missing in America, and Tracy worked frequently with the organization and would bring them cases. So Aaron found Andrea's laptop, and Nancy encouraged everyone in the group to turn on their location tracking. So it'll show like where you went specifically, like with these little dots. You can click on each dot and it'll say like what time the person was at that location. So they can see that Andrea was at Aaron's house until 1:30 in the morning. At 1:38, she leaves Aaron's house and she walks back to her mom's house. Like Courtney said, like this was done very frequently. It's a very safe neighborhood that has a golf course, a country club, like their own police department. Like the area is very known for being safe, and again, wouldn't be unusual for her to be walking by herself in the middle of the night.
Hmm.
And residents would also like call the police department frequently for like someone walking on their lawn, like stuff like that, where people are kind of always aware of what's going on.
Yeah, these are rich people who are like, I'm going to report every little thing I see. I saw a car that I've never seen before driving down the road. I'm calling the Audubon Park Police
Exactly.
Department.
Exactly. So Andrea got back to her mom's house around 1:54 a.m. At 3:53 a.m., it's still active, but there's no movement. At 6:31 a.m., there is further activity, but the location of it is highly debated, so we'll speak more about this in a little bit. Police said that Andrea never made it inside the house. Everyone at the house says that they were asleep and didn't hear any knocking. She didn't have a key to the house. She apparently had been bringing friends back to the house who like couldn't be trusted, so she wasn't trusted with a key. They didn't let her have one. It appears that Andrea did try to reach out to a few people to like maybe pick her up, but no one has come forward saying that they picked her up or not. In the first interview with police, Sarah and Ethan said that they were asleep and didn't hear her knocking, but in the second interview, their story changed. So they said they were awake when Andrea got back, but they wouldn't let her in because they were scared because she was very upset. So very weird that those are two completely different stories.
Hmm.
I feel like especially for it to go in that direction, like I would think
Hmm.
maybe if it was like, oh, like we didn't let her in because we were upset, and like you said that at first, but then you're like, oh shit, like something happened and like I feel responsible, so now I'm gonna say we were asleep and didn't hear anything. So it's kind of weird that it would change
To
in the other
change to
direction.
that. Yeah. And I'm like, is it because you're like, oh, they're gonna like she has her location tracking. They're gonna see she was like,
Yeah,
I don't know, something
it's
weird.
weird. Yeah. So, in the weeks after Andrea's disappearance, Sarah and Ethan also moved back to Lexington. So the family says like that's where they lived. They were only in Louisville because they were renovating the house. So once they finished the renovation, they went back to their home. But before leaving, they reportedly declined any additional meetings with the Louisville Police Department. They've also not helped or participated in any searches or handing out flyers or anything. So police take a look at the house. They see no signs of a struggle. There's no blood, nothing like that. Both of the children's fathers were looked into and cleared as suspects. They both had alibis, and they also both had their boys the night Andrea disappeared. But she would never leave without contact. She obviously was a part of an organization that like helped missing people. Like she knew the devastation on families when something like this happens. Like she wouldn't leave
Hmm.
without telling people, especially when you have two young children.
Yeah.
There were physical searches around Aaron's house. Tips kept flying in, and one tip led them to Jeffersonville, Indiana. Someone said they spotted her at a Jeffersonville shopping center, and detectives tried to work every lead, but they just kept falling through. 1 month after Andrea vanished, social media comments began to target her family. They actually had to take down a Facebook page they had started because people were like saying really negative things about Andrea and her family. They were throwing accusations at multiple members of the family. And soon after this, the Knabels also started receiving threats. At Aaron's house, a Chevy Impala drove by that had blacked out windows and just kept like driving by and stopping, kind of like watching the place. And that happened quite a few times. The family went outside and was able to get the license plate, and it did come back as stolen. So they put out some information, but they weren't able to find that car. According to Louisville Metro Police, her phone records show that she had talked to a few people back and forth between Aaron's house and her mom's house, but nobody agreed to come pick her up or help her out. She did try to contact Suzette. She called her on August 13th at 2:12 a.m., but Suzette missed the call. She did message her back at 2:13, but Andrea never opened the message. According to Nancy, Suzette's vehicle was seen going from Kentucky to Indiana at 3:30 a.m. on the night Andrea disappeared, but Suzette denies ever driving across to Indiana. So, interesting. In the months following, Missing in America began to fall apart. Nancy believed that Andrea's disappearance revealed who was loyal and who wasn't. A lot of people online were saying like this was a stunt. They were hiding Andrea somewhere. A lot of people started harassing Nancy. She did start to argue back and forth with some people, which only made it worse. And she did eventually have to remove herself from Facebook. So now we'll fast forward to January 2021. So Andrea has been missing for 17 months. There's no more leads that the family knows of. They don't answer Mike's calls, and Mike does a lot of like personal searching. He follows any leads and tips, like even in dangerous areas. Doesn't matter what it is, like he continues to try and search for her based on any lead that comes up. Erin would help some as well, but she has less of an active role on the front line searching because she is a mother of young children. She does a lot of social media work and trying to help find Andrea, but Sarah is not speaking to Mike. So the last time they spoke, Sarah said that she was upset that he didn't help Andrea and she called him a bad father. So Nancy had moved from Louisville right before Andrea disappeared. She eventually started dating Joe Fanciulli, who was a retired homicide detective. So they decided to come back to Louisville in 2021 to try and get more leads. So Tracy has been working on the case since Andrea disappeared. So Joe and Nancy are going back to like try to work with him to find her. So they speak with Randy Tatt, who was a documentary producer. He was going to make a documentary about Missing in America. And Randy says that Andrea was very professional and helpful. She had a gift of getting what she wanted from people. He did say that she always seemed kind of guarded. And in footage from the possible documentary, she talked about getting robbed by two 14-year-old kids in a Kroger parking lot. She also said her apartment had broken into, and she said that their most recent case was a man who went missing who had been involved in criminal activity and that it could be a dangerous case.
So the case she was referring to was 27-year-old Teresa McCoy. She had been found shot, and then Austin Gomez went missing after she was killed. There was a local drug dealer in the area who may have been involved with Teresa and Austin, like their death and disappearance. He was arrested and posted a $500,000 bond, and the bond was posted right away, which was apparently very rare. Like someone in the documentary was like, we asked like local prosecutors, and they were like, that never happens. Like no one ever posts the bond here that quickly.
Yeah.
So a lot of people started to wonder if like possibly like a Mexican drug cartel could be tied to this local dealer. I mean, Louisville is kind of right there, like in the Midwest, a lot of interstates. Makes sense if maybe, they're having some people up there selling their product. Nancy pulled the group out once she saw all of this because she felt it was just too dangerous for like a volunteer group. However, in the documentary footage, Andrea says she was still working on it and may go undercover. And Nancy's like, I didn't know this. Like, I told everyone, don't touch it. That's too much for us to handle. That's the police jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Tracy, the private investigator, said he won't even talk about this case on camera. He was like, I'm not going to talk about it. Like, I will not talk about this. And he says he cannot recall if Andrea continued to work on this case after Nancy pulled out, and he wouldn't really say anything else. But it doesn't really seem that Andrea was like actively working on this case. And that was actually a year and a half before she went missing. So it wasn't like she started this and then immediately went missing. It was time had passed and it didn't really seem like she was actively working on this case that we know of. So a lot of trickiness comes with Andrea's case because it appears to be different reporting with the friends versus her families. So Nancy said she didn't meet Andrea's family until she went missing, and Nancy said that her dad did not know about her work with Missing in America. Um, Aaron did say her and Andrea were close on the documentary, but seems a little confusing in this case with reports from her family and then group of friends who heavily participated in the documentary. Like the documentary says one thing, then a website from the family tries to debunk a lot of claims, but also we know the family can be suspects, so it's just a hot mess. It's kind of tricky, and we're just going to try to address like every thing that is discussed and not make any like assumptions like of our own, and just try to dive into the theories of what happened, who could be involved, and try to be as unbiased as we can. So Suzette and Andrea were teamed up together often. They went on a lot of trips together and worked cases together. And again, as we said earlier, it was a long time theory that Suzette helped her disappear since her car was allegedly going over to Indiana and came back 4 minutes later at like 3 in the morning. She did get a toll for that trip. They reached out to the bridge authority, but it was actually 3 p.m., not a.m. So Nancy had been holding on to this for so long. Suzette was cleared. Another long-standing theory is that Sarah and Ethan were involved in Andrea's disappearance. She was reportedly in a fight with them. She was walking back to the house where they lived. Before she disappeared, she told Diane, who was a friend and fellow member of Missing in America, that Sarah was very spoiled, especially by her dad. Andrea said she was the black sheep of the family and said that her and Sarah's relationship was not very good. We also know based on her phone activity that Andrea left errands the second time at like 1:41 a.m. Door was locked again. She couldn't get in. Again, Sarah and Ethan tell two different versions, but neither includes letting her in the house. And like as we mentioned, the phone activity did show her outside of her mom's house at 3:51 a.m. So her phone did die at like 6:31 a.m. and stopped sending alerts. But like there's an alert at that time, but it doesn't really say where it is. So Joe, who was reinvestigating in the documentary, says it does not say at all where that location was. It doesn't have a pin, it doesn't have anything. But Tracy says that it was 100% at her mom's house. And he's like, I can pull it up. And then the documentary was like, he never sent us like the proof that that's where it was.
Hmm. Okay.
Kind of weird, but the police now have all of that besides screenshots. So kind of hard to know for sure, but it doesn't like say exactly. Like the rest of them will be like McDonald's at 123 ABC Street, you know. So some neighbors also reported hearing construction noises in the middle of the night. Sarah and Ethan were renovating the home, but kind of weird to do at night while also not letting Andrea into the house.
Yeah.
Again, Sarah and Ethan have not been a part of any of the searches or passed out flyers, which I do think is kind of a little weird since I mean, maybe that's just their response to guilt of not letting her back into the house. But I know
Mhm.
Aaron is like heavily involved and feels so guilty, but like Sarah and Ethan are just like, move back to Lexington, gone. You know,
Yeah,
it's
like you,
weird.
you would think your guilt would make you respond in the opposite direction and be obsessed with doing everything you can to find
Mm-hmm.
her.
Because that's definitely Aaron, because she's like, why did I turn her away? Why didn't I just let her stay? Like,
Yeah, and like her dad
so
feels super guilty and
yeah. So another story about Sarah and Ethan does come from Diane. So again, this could be like hearsay. But Diane had come to the house in the week after Andrea went missing. She said Sarah showed her to Andrea's room. Diane said there was a hole in the wall, almost like a head had been slammed into the wall. Diane also said she's a psychic medium and felt a pain in the back of her head when she went near the room. So she was like, kind of getting these like feelings, these vibes. Then I see this hole. She said there was a lot of damage in the room, like in the room, but the police say they didn't find any damage. The police didn't find any damage inside the house. This could have been due to like some construction, like the holes there because you're remodeling, or is it because there's construction, so you have the materials to fix any damage before the police show up? But Diane's also coming a week after. It doesn't really make sense at
hmm,
all.
yeah,
The
that's
family in the follow-up Q&A on their website say there was never a hole in the wall. So again, with this case being tricky of like everyone is saying
Yeah.
something different. It's like, who do you believe?
Yeah, that's tough.
Diane says she spoke to Ethan at the house. Asked if Andrea had been acting strange the day like she went missing. He said she was kind of acting erratic and not like herself. He said there was a lot of like yelling and like banging in her bedroom. He did say Sarah and Andrea have been fighting, and he said Andrea's mom told them to change the locks to keep Andrea out. And Mike, again, Andrea's dad, said that Ethan could have a very bad temper. And Sarah had told Mike that Ethan liked to get into fights. And Mike and Ethan were not very close. And Mike also claims Sarah once said that Ethan said he knows people who can make them disappear. So, yeah.
Hmm.
Um, Sarah and Ethan are still at the top of a lot of people's suspects list, but have never been like officially identified as such by the police. Like the police have never come out and said there are lead suspects, but
Which I feel like a lot of times, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you or anyone listening, I feel like a lot of times they only really announce suspects when they're like trying to find them. Like it's usually
mm-mm.
not like a, oh hey, just so everyone knows, this person is our suspect. Like they really only publicly announce that when they're like, we don't know where this person is, we're trying to find them for questioning, but
Yeah,
it sounds like they know where they are, so it's like maybe they just don't have enough to build a case on them. Like, but yeah.
yeah. Because I mean, and I'm sure I bring this up later, but I mean, there is no actual proof that any foul play happened to Andrea and that she didn't just run away. So it's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
who knows? Um, Another theory of her disappearance has to do with her personal life. In the few months leading up to her disappearance, we've kind of alluded to this for a while. So Andrea was actually very close with her boyfriend Brian's ex-girlfriend. So the ex-girlfriend was supposed to meet up with Joe from like the documentary and kind of tell her like what she knew. Um, she kind of stood Joe up a little bit, and eventually, like Brian just decided to call Joe and say what he knew. Brian said they broke up after they broke up, and he like went to jail for selling drugs. She took his connections, and Andrea started selling methamphetamines. And he also claimed that she was also actively using methamphetamines. Um, Also, Brian hinted at a possible affair with Ethan that maybe Andrea had mentioned that something was going on with her and Ethan, which is
Hmm.
not great.
Yeah.
Um, and Brian did point Joe towards Matt Ray, who said he had a lot of info and that like everything that like Brian knew was coming from Matt Ray. He was like, I'm telling you like what I heard, so you should go directly to this source. Um, Matt Ray is a friend of Andrea's and would have like maybe have information like if Andrea was on drugs, like he was close to her before she disappeared. So the family was putting on another search of like a park nearby, and Aaron invited Matt Ray to this search just to try to get him out, see if he would talk. Matt did show up, and so Joe kind of tried to talk to him about Andrea. And Matt said that Andrea was using methamphetamines. Matt said actually one of the last times he saw her, they went to Walgreens and she'd gotten some like athlete's foot cream and was like rubbing it on her face because she had this like sore on her face and had been like picking at it and kind of felt like something was going on. And again, she went to the ER that night for like a rash infection. Um,
Uh-huh.
and it's shown in the documentary, which even before they brought this up, I was kind of like, what's happening on her face suddenly? Because, like, in cell phone footage 3 weeks before her disappearance, you can see this like large mark on her cheek, like
Hmm.
that would fit kind of the description of the sore and like stuff like that. And apparently,
Yeah.
like, with a certain level of like meth addiction, you do feel, I guess, like bugs are crawling under your skin and you try to like scratch them. So it is
Yeah.
a common, like the face picking is like a common indication of some level of meth addiction.
Hmm.
And Matt did say the Walgreens trip was 3 to 4 days prior to going missing. On the family's website, they do address the skin issues, that Andrea was very self conscious about it. They say there's no for sure claim that the possible drug use was the cause of skin issues and that she was actively going to the doctor to try and figure it out. But we'll get into it more. Her family just does not like to bring up the possible substance abuse issues.
Hmm.
So Matt confirmed that Andrea took over Brian's customers and business after Brian went to prison. She said she mainly dealt with like one dealer, like she wasn't like having a lot. She just took these certain clients, this certain amount of business. And Matt said he did hear that before she went missing, there was a rumor that she had tried to pay with counterfeit money and maybe owed him like her dealer money she didn't have. Um, Matt said he only saw like him in his vehicle once and that he drove a gold Malibu or Impala, kind of the boxier shape with tinted windows. So if you recall, Mike talked about a gold Impala with blacked out windows driving by Aaron's house. So, kind of a weird connection. I don't know how many people are driving that car around, but could have been the drug dealer, like maybe looking for Andrea, maybe whatever. So, Joe did say he found a crumpled up, like $100 bill that appeared to be fake. She had a printer, so he was like, maybe it's possible she was trying to make like fake money in a pinch, but the family's website said that was found to not be true. So Nancy was just kind of like shocked by all of this. Suzette said like she never knew Andrea to be on drugs. And Erin did say that about a year before she went missing, she did start acting differently and was kind of being secretive. She said a lot of people in the family were worried about her behavior, but didn't really suspect drugs. And Mike also said he didn't like suspect drug use. And 3 weeks prior to her disappearance, Nancy was preparing to move to Pennsylvania with her sister. So Nancy said Andrea kind of like spiraled after she left, like, especially with like her leaving. She was like, I don't know what to do about it. And like they had a breakfast before Nancy left, and Andrea was like begging her to like come along. She's like, please, like, get me out of here. Let me move to Pennsylvania, like being very serious about wanting to go with her. But Nancy's sister, Sean Wallner, didn't want Andrea to come because she said Andrea reminded of her of herself. And Sean said, I used to be an addict, and like Nancy had no clue that I was a drug addict because people see what they want to see, or don't see what they don't want to see.
Hmm.
Sean said that she'd seen the marks on Andrea's face, and Sean said to Nancy that she thought Andrea was using drugs. And Sean didn't want Andrea to come because she thought it was possible Andrea would find a new dealer in Pennsylvania, put their family at risk. I mean, Sean is a recovering addict. She's like, I can't deal with that. So Andrea did call people, the night she went missing. If she was indeed hanging around drug dealers, she could have made her way to the list of contacts that included them. Police still have Andrea's laptop and her phone is missing, so kind of hard to know for sure. Andrea had 3 to 4 different Facebook pages with like different friends and kind of like acting different on each page. This was what Joe found. And he said one page did seem to have mostly friends who were like connected in the drug world. So maybe she kind of had people didn't know because she had this separate Facebook where they were kind of talking with them. So Joe brought possible pictures to Matt to see if he could like identify her drug dealer since he did see him at least once, but I don't think he was really able to know for sure. So Joe wants to discuss with the Louisville Metro Police about Andrea's case and what they're planning to do. At the time of the documentary, Andrea's case was not on Metro Police's missing person page, but it does appear to be up there now. So
Interesting.
don't know if people kind of were like, why is it not there? Or if the documentary is lying, I don't know. So, people's lifestyles really affect how the public views a case. So, it goes from Andrea being a mom raised in Louisville, helping find missing people, to just she had a drug problem. And that's, I think what her family didn't want to happen to her is just get labeled, you know, as a drug addict and not
Hmm.
a missing person.
But because we know the searches for different types of people in different circumstances look very different.
Yes. So, 3 months after Matt spoke with Joe, he told the producers of the Finding Andrea documentary he wants to discuss a different theory of what may have happened to Andrea. He thinks the drug and drug dealers is just the wrong angle. He's like, you're barking up the wrong tree. Um, Matt said Andrea met a guy after her ex went to prison. It was her ex supplier. Matt said he wasn't like your typical drug dealer. He was a very nice guy, never had an issue. Matt said Andrea told him she never felt scared or in danger with this guy. It wasn't like you see in the movies where it's, very hostile, like they had a good relationship. But Matt thinks that LMPD needs to revisit Ethan and Sarah. So Matt said Andrea would talk to him about the fights with Ethan and Sarah, and that leading up to her disappearance, there was nothing but issues with Ethan and Sarah, and it was getting like worse and worse every day. Like every time she was talking, it just was getting worse and worse. A lot of tension in the house, and 3 to 4 days before she went missing, she was telling Matt about all the issues in that house, and that Andrea, like Ethan and Sarah, would lock Andrea out of the house multiple times. Like this was common that they would just lock her out, wouldn't let her in. Matt did say that Sarah thought Andrea was having an affair with Ethan, and Andrea didn't really like squash the rumors. So he's like, I don't necessarily know if like they were having an affair, but like Andrea knew it bothered Sarah, so she wasn't gonna like deny it. Like she was just gonna kind of be like, I don't know, and just kind of a way to like egg on these suspicions is like a way to get back at Sarah for like being awful to her, like
Yeah.
sisters do. Basically, sisters fight
Right.
dirty. Like so Matt said the last day he saw Andrea that she talked about how Sarah and her had gotten into a physical fight, and Andrea didn't really hang out with her family much until she had to move back into her like mom's house. That she was like, I don't really talk to them, but I'm back here. I have to. She said that she always felt left out, felt like it was her dad and Aaron and her mom and Sarah, and she was just an outcast. So moving into the house really made these tensions worse. So, Matt said that Andrea's family in the first year she went missing tried really hard to keep the drug issue quiet. They did not want it talked about at all of like because of the fear that people like would only think that. Matt thinks they were also worried about their own reputation, not just how she would have been viewed, but like feeling ashamed maybe that she was addicted to drugs. Matt thinks this Matt thinks that another fight occurred when she got back to the house that night and it got out of hand. Again, that is all speculation. That is Matt's theory. I'm not saying that's what happened, but he believes something happened with Ethan and Sarah and something happened when she got back to the house that night. So, Detective Brian Peters has been assigned to Andrea's case in 2020, and apparently they're really focused on Ethan, especially due to the changing stories. They like have not checked in on the case or to help her search, so like they haven't even called into the police to be like, any new updates? Like
Wow.
nothing. Police are hopeful they can get Sarah to reveal more information about what happened, especially if she's separated from Ethan. They're like, maybe she's in a very bad relationship. If we can get her away and like interview them separately, maybe she'll crack. Mike said that police plan to re-interview the entire family and restart the investigation. It's not really happened, so we don't know if Mike is not telling the full truth or if Mike is being told that and nothing's happened, but it does seem the police have not followed up with the family or done like any further polygraphs. And Aaron did say like we've been willing, at least me and my dad, like Mike, we've been very willing. They haven't been interested.
Hmm.
So really the theories on this case can be endless. Like something happened in the house, someone in the drug world, she left willingly, she was the victim of a random attack. I mean, random person picks her up. Like um it could be anything, honestly, in this case.
Yeah.
And it seems like a lot of people do really focus on either the family connection or the drug connection. But unfortunately, we don't really have any solid proof for any of these theories besides like circumstantial, this was weird. So Ethan and Sarah chose not to participate in the documentary, and LMPD has not officially named them as suspects, at least to the public. Um, Mike and Aaron did get a lot of heat with their participation in the documentary. A lot of people think they're crazy for not being more critical of Ethan and Sarah, but I do think that's a hard reality for a family if someone within the family hurt Andrea. Like, I think
Yeah.
that's hard to be like, my daughter, my sister could have done something. So,
Hmm.
we're not really in like their positions. We don't really know like what they're feeling. I mean, again, it doesn't sound like Mike and Sarah talk now and stuff. So please just be kind to them. Don't hate on people on the internet, especially
Yeah, no.
victims' families. That's not very nice. Um, but again, they do continue to be in social media to advocate for Andrea. I mean, Erin apparently goes on any podcast she can to just talk about it, try to get, she has multiple, like a Facebook and Instagram, multiple accounts, just trying to like raise awareness about Andrea. So if you do happen to have any information, please contact the Louisville Metro Police Department at 502-574-1720. There is a $10,000 reward for any information leading to Andrea's safe return. And Erin has also made a GoFundMe that we will link in the show notes. So all proceeds like from the GoFundMe go to missing posters, t-shirts, increasing the reward money, and like helping with like any other costs that have just been associated with searching for Andrea. And so that is the disappearance of Andrea Knabel.
What a wild one. Like,
So wild. And like this was like a four-part documentary.
hmm
They didn't really reveal the Suzette toll until the third episode. So
mm,
the whole time I'm like,
of course.
oh, wait a minute. This girl was driving across the bridge at 3 a.m. How weird. And she says she didn't. Well, she didn't. It was during the
Yeah.
day, the next day. And then they did not really bring up like any of like Andrea's like substance abuse issues until like the end of episode 3 into 4. So the whole
Mm,
time I was I am so sorry, Mike and Aaron, if you were listening to this, because I was like, Mike, you told her her kids would be better without like somewhere else. And like, Aaron, like you turned her away. That's your sister. But then the fact that her behavior had changed and maybe the fact that
hmm
they were suspecting, I was like, this totally makes sense. Like, this,
Yeah.
it's all coming together. Like, I completely understand setting boundaries, like, especially with
Yeah.
your family. And it's hard. And of course, you regret it, but like, what,
And they're trying to keep everyone else safe. And we don't know how
mm-hmm.
many times, Andrea had done something similar in the middle of the night and it like was going on all night. And they're like, okay, we just have to, I get
Yeah.
that. And especially like you said, if they know that there's a history of drug use there, they suspect that she, might be currently using. And I get also why they didn't want that angle to be public because like we said,
Mm-hmm.
people do view cases very differently based on what they think the circumstances surrounding the missing person are. So I can completely understand why they're like, oh, we don't want the public to know that she may have
Yeah.
had this drug issue.
Because like Erin was saying too, because she was like, I think there was some like renovation or something happening in her house where like her kids were sleeping downstairs and she was like, Andrea was getting like so heated. It's 1:30 in the morning. I have to work in the
Yeah.
morning. My kids are sleeping. Like I can't have this going on right now.
hmm
Like we'll talk about this in the morning. Like just
Yeah,
go home and go to sleep.
exactly. But just what a wild one. Like you said, like just the
Disappeared into
possibilities are
thin air.
endless. Yeah.
Literally just into thin air. Gone. Where is she?
And I do have such a hard time. Like I know what happens, but I have such a hard time believing that a mother of two young children would just take off and
Mm-hmm.
never like say anything, never reach out, never
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, because I mean, and like I said, like the documentary showed Mike like going around, like he was going to like unhoused camps like in the middle of woods, being like, have you seen this girl? Have you seen her?
hmm
Like, please help me, somebody help me. But
Yeah.
um just with no luck so far.
That is really sad. But yeah, if you are in that area and know anything, please definitely reach out to the police
Hmm.
department there.
Yep.
All right, that being said, Courtney, what is your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week is I'm absolutely obsessed with the like Hershey's chocolate eggs that have come out.
I love our
I
candy
had
perks of the week here.
I was like, it's the little things this
It
time.
is.
Yeah, they're these just little tiny baby. It's just straight chocolate. It's just a
hmm
little chocolate oval egg thing. And I just love it. I'm obsessed. Like I just love popping one little one in my mouth, letting it like melt and chewing on it.
hmm
It's so good. And
Yum.
then like my mom bought me a bag, and then of course, because Kevin finishes his jelly beans in 2 days, he starts eating my eggs. And I'm like,
Excuse me, Kevin.
those are mine.
Uh-huh.
Paws off because they'll eat like six at a time. And I'm like, that's like
Like I'm
half the
savoring these.
bag.
I'm making these last, okay?
I have like 2 to 3 a day, okay, as my little after dinner treat. And I'm trying to savor them because Easter's almost over. By the
hmm
time this is coming out, Easter's in like 5 days. So,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, the day this is coming out is me and Kevin's 2-year anniversary.
Well, happy anniversary to you guys.
Oh, That is so weird. 2 years. Can you believe it's been 2 years?
That is crazy that it's been 2 years already.
Yeah. I was looking at
Wow.
pictures like of all the children at my
Hmm.
wedding and like different people. I
You're
don't
like,
know
who are
who
these
those
kids?
babies
I
are.
don't I don't know what kids you
Is
stole to bring to
it
the wedding because
is it Kiki Palmer who's like, I've never seen that man in my life. What? I've never seen that child in my life. Who is that?
I did
Um,
also when I painted my nails tonight, I picked the color that you got us for to wear in your wedding. And I was
oh,
like, oh,
nice.
Courtney's anniversary is coming up. I'll wear this color. So
Yeah.
I did pick my nails according to that.
We love a holiday. My
We love a
anniversary.
theme.
Yeah, I just looked up at the calendar and saw that. So sorry, Kevin, that I poked fun at you for eating my eggs. You can eat.
You know what? That's what 2 years of marriage is about. Okay.
I was supposed to say you can eat my eggs, but that kind of sounds dirty.
I mean, I guess you
Please don't get
could,
that
but
far up in there. Oh Lord, where has this podcast gone? That took a quick left turn. So quick.
oh
Anyway,
gosh.
yeah, so that is my perk of the week is Hershey eggs, and I guess an added perk of the week now that it's my anniversary. So, yes, that's my perk of the
Oh
week. Jacqueline,
goodness.
what is your perk of the week?
So my perk of the week is that so we have a little like princess organization here in Knoxville that like they, like all they have people dress up as like the Disney princesses and do events or whatever. So they had Elsa and Anna from Frozen at one of the ice cream places this weekend. So we surprised Millie and took her, and it was just adorable. Like she was over the moon. We didn't tell her where she was going, just that there was a surprise. So like we didn't tell her until she like literally walked around the corner and like saw them standing there. But it was funny because we like had to get in line kind of like behind the building, and they had like a sign where they were like advertising like the event, and she was like, "Look, there's a picture of Elsa and Anna here," and I was like, "Wow, that's so cool."
Isn't that crazy?
And then we like walk around the corner, and then she's like, "It's Anna." She is like, I mean, so excited. Like she lost her mind. So then of
Yeah.
course Andrew got us ice cream to eat while we were waiting in line. So then she got to eat ice cream and then meet Elsa and Anna, and she was just so excited. She has a little Frozen watch, and she had to show it to them, and
Hmm.
she talks about it all the time, and it's like they were just so nice to me. And I was like, yes, they were, Millie.
I mean, is there anything better than like getting ice cream and meeting your idols, you know?
Right? Like it was the best day of her whole life. I mean,
Yeah, nothing can
but
top
yeah,
that.
it's so cute. And then when we tried to take a picture, she turned around standing like 10 feet in front of them and is like staring at the ground, smiling. And I was like, okay, can we step a few feet back and can you look at me? And then
Yeah.
she's just like cheesing it so big in that picture. Like so yeah, so that was my perk of the week is just getting to do that fun little thing that, was a free event, just had to buy the ice cream, which you didn't even have to buy the ice cream, you could have just gone,
Hmm.
but just a fun little thing. And then she, like I said, was just so excited and has not stopped talking about it since. So and then she, she has frozen stuff everywhere. She has a little frozen hairbrush that has Elsa and Anna on it. So now when we brush her hair, she's like, "Look, that's who I did meet." Like,
That's
yes,
who I
it
did
is.
meet.
That's who I did meet today, she says, because she has no sense of time. So everything is today or this morning. She's like, "Look,
Hmm.
that's who I did meet this morning." And I was like, "Yes, 3 days ago, you sure did."
Hmm. That was 4 months ago. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, we had that conversation quite often. I did this morning. I'm like, "No, that was last year," but okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you guys want to tell us, again, your preferred Easter candy, we already put that out there last week, but if you haven't
Hmm.
told us yet, please do now. If you want to wish Courtney a happy anniversary, if you want to tell me what princesses your kids like, let us know your thoughts on this case. Happy to chat about it, discuss with you guys. You guys know where to find us on all the things. We are also on patreon.com/caffeinated crimes. We are doing a Q&A for this month's bonus episode, so tune
Hmm.
in for that if you guys want to ask us any questions and, about anything, whatever you want. Um, we do also have like 40 something other bonus episodes that are out there and
Hmm.
all kinds
We
of
have a
other fun
lot.
perks. So make sure and join us over there.
Yeah, and if you could give us 5 stars on Spotify, Apple, podcast, anywhere that has like a rating system that you listen on, that would be greatly appreciated. Or you can give us a like and a subscribe on YouTube. Leave a nice comment if you feel so inclined. But in the meantime, go have a cup of coffee.
And don't commit a crime.